Live from Citizen TV, this is Citizen Weekend with Victoria Rubadiri.
We have the third highest teen pregnancy rate in the world. What's driving the numbers in this country, and how do we begin to deal with the menace that is teen pregnancies in Kenya? That's our discussion tonight on Citizen Weekend, and these are the day's top stories. More than 1,112 tons of contaminated sugar seized in Mombasa amid fears the consignment was meant for the Kenyan market.
Uwe na license ama hauna license, leo baa zote zifungwe.
Sisi upande wetu wa national government, we have taken decisive action.
Locking the floodgates, Kirinyaga governor orders all pubs in the county vetted afresh as 17 illicit liquor victims are laid to rest. Expanding the IEBC selection panel to include political parties, a leader of official opposition in parliament, some of the National Dialogue Committee proposals set to be examined by the National Assembly.
We seek to discuss and also hear the views of the members of parliament from the Kenya Kwanza is the candidature of Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to the African Union chairmanship.
President Ruto's United Democratic Alliance declares support for Raila Odinga's African Union quest. Welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Yulan Zali. Now, the Kenya Revenue Authority, or KRA, has nabbed more than 1,112 tons of contaminated sugar at the port of Mombasa, triggering panic among consumers that some may have been cleared for sale. Now, according to KRA, out of the 46 containers full of imported household sugar, 13 containers have been condemned, with more investigations ongoing. Stephen Leto reports.
Citizen TV has acquired images from the busy port of Mombasa showing a sting operation that led to the seizure of more than 1,112 tons of sugar suspected to be contaminated. The 46 containers of household sugar had docked at the port of Mombasa late last year, with 13 containers confirmed by the Kenya Revenue Authority to have been contaminated following a mechanical hitch that led to flooding of water inside the consignment, making it unfit for human consumption. Documents seen so far show that Rehema Badi, who is the official importer of the multi-million shillings sugar consignment, used A-Level Logistics Limited to import the sugar from Mauritius at a cost of 214 million shillings.
Immediately then I was told by KRA they are auctioning my sugar. You understand? So when I was told they are auctioning, I had to look for that money from a friend. Yes. And then when I sell, I will return the money. Okay? So this guy gave me 30 million. I paid for taxes. But then in these 46 containers, 36 containers had water. The other 33 were clean. So we got a letter from KRA.
The businesswoman says out of the 46 containers held, only 13 have been confirmed not to have passed the test, claiming that the 33 remaining containers are safe.
We followed the due process. We got the letter. So ikazuiliwa Mitchell court. Okay? Yes. So now we followed the process. I paid. Apparently, I paid even for the bad sugar because they said I'm paying for 1 BL. They didn't want to hear.
A-Level company that imported the sugar had made several payments to the Kenya Revenue Authority, including 30 million shillings as tax and an additional 6 million shillings as inspection fee. The importer now wants KRA to pay back money equivalent to the 13 containers that have been condemned. Kenya Revenue Authority And the Kenya Bureau of Standards KEBS have again sampled the 33 remaining containers to establish their suitability to be released to the market. Rehema Badi, who imported the sugar consignment, has dismissed fears that some of the contaminated sugar is already in the Kenyan market. A joint multi-agency operation is ongoing that is led by the DCI and Port Health officials to establish the whereabouts of any other possible contaminated sugar, either in the port of Mombasa or that may have been cleared into the Kenyan market. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua says government administrators and police officers will no longer be allowed to own bars as they represent a conflict of interest. Well, he spoke during the funeral service of the 17 people who died after consuming illicit liquor in Mwea, Kirinyaga County, where Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru ordered the immediate closure of all bars in the county. Waiguru also put on notice county officials who own bars within the county. And as Ben Kirui reports, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has blamed the judiciary as the weak link over the rising cases of illicit brew in the country.
At Kangai Primary School in Mwea, Kirinyaga County, the atmosphere was heavy as the church led in the last rites for 17 people who died after consuming illicit liquor in Kangai, Mwea West, Kirinyaga County. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua putting on notice national government administrative officers and police officers who own bars.
There is no way a chief, an assistant county commissioner, a deputy county commissioner or county commissioner can run a bar anywhere in the country. There is no way a police officer can run a bar. That is clear conflict of interest. And
Gachagua blamed the judiciary for the rising cases of illicit brews and resultant deaths and harm in the country. He pointed out that the weak link in the fight against illicit brews is the police and the judiciary.
Sisi upande wetu wa national government, we have taken decisive action. And what is remaining are the courts of law to do their work.
Kirinyaga County Anne Waiguru condemned the incident, which resulted in the deaths of the victims, attributing it to greed among bar owners. She cancelled all bar and liquor licenses and issued new directives.
Bar zote zile ambazo ziko Kirinyaga County zimefungwa kutoka leo. Closed. And a new process ya ku-verify na licensing ianze.
Governor Waiguru directed that county government staff found to own bars would have to make a choice between public service and such establishments.
Nimeambiwa na kwamba niko na staff wangu 11 ambao wako kiasi ya directors na below wako na bars zao kama biashara. This is the directive from me. Utachagua hiyo bar ama kufanya kazi kwa county government ya Kirinyaga.
The victims of the poisonous brew were buried in their respective homes. Investigations into the sale of the deadly liquor purchased from rogue police officers continue with the owner of the bar at the heart of the tragedy in custody. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Archbishop Philip Anyolo of the Nairobi Archdiocese has called on political leaders to join the church during the 40 days Lenten period to reflect on their individual integrity. Speaking at St. Bonica Catholic Church in Juru during the launch of the Lenten campaign, Bishop Anyolo said this year's theme, Integrity for a Just Nation, is timely in Kenya, urging all elected leaders to uphold Chapter 6 of the Constitution on leadership and integrity. Now, the Nairobi Archdiocese Bishop also called on the government to look for ways to lower the cost of living to ease the burden for a majority of Kenyans who are suffering.
In our Constitution, one full chapter about integrity. But this chapter is the most neglected in our leadership and especially our elected leaders. Executive parliamentary, I'd call it, tuweze kuamua kwa umoja ya kwamba tunaweza, ikiwa kwamba tutakubali ya kwamba sisi ni watepetevu, sisi ni watu ambao hatufanyi kikamilifu kulingana na jinsi ya uongozi tuliopewa, ili ya kwamba tuweze kusahihisha nia zetu. Na natafuta wale ambao uongozi wao ni wa kujali maslahi ya wananchi na kulinda wananchi na kuwalisha wanachokihitaji. Tunajua cha kwanza kabisa na cha muhimu ambacho mwanadamu anahitaji ama mwananchi anahitaji ni chakula. They say a hungry man is angry.
Now, the ruling United Democratic Alliance, or UDA party, has formally expressed support for opposition leader Raila Odinga's bid for the African Union Commission chairperson's position. Now, UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala heaped praise on the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party boss, terming him a true Pan-Africanist. Malala said that the President Ruto party resolved to back Mr. Odinga's bid was not a political decision, but rather a patriotic one made to raise the country's profile and image on the continental scene. Kenya Kwanza will retreat tomorrow to Naivasha for a joint parliamentary group meeting chaired by party leader President William Ruto to, among others, take a position on backing Odinga for an AU job.
And as a coalition, and as a party, specifically the ruling party, UDA, we have decided to put our foot down and support Raila Odinga from the sky, on the land, in the sea, whichever place and whatever avenue that we may be having, we will put our resources to support the candidature of Raila Amolo Odinga.
Raila was on the forefront of the greatest leaders who have championed the entrenchment of the tenets of democracy and the rule of law. Today, as the continent goes into deep waters, seeking the emancipation from perpetual dependency on external supports, a man of his stature has the capacity to chart our path and that of Africa to great height. In my capacity as the Secretary General of the ruling party, I wholeheartedly support his bid. I also urge our party supporters and our general membership to support his candidature.
Now, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta steered clear of politics in his address in Tetu, Nyeri County during the burial of former Assistant Inspector General of Police Kingori Mwangi. Now, despite calls by regional leaders to have the former president involved in unity talks among a section of leaders, the former head of state instead eulogized the departed former senior policeman as an astute serviceman who served with diligence and earning himself accolades for distinguished service. Now, the former head of state left the service early for another burial ceremony in Nyandarua County before Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua arrived. Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Moses Kuria, who also attended the burial ceremony, threatened to cancel the outcome of the recent NYS recruitment exercise over alleged malpractice, citing reports of bribery demands as high as 30,000 shillings for recruitment.
Kama kuna kitu ambapo alikuwa anaona hii haiendi sawa, hakuwa anajali kama wewe ni mkubwa ama mdogo, anakuambia ukweli wake.
Unajua juzi mliniamulisha tufanye recruitment ya NYS. Nikipata kuna kashida hata kidogo, sitakuwa na budi kusema irudiwe. Itafanya hata ikirudiwa mara 10 mpaka ifanywe straight, because mimi sitaki kutolala usiku because my conscience is disturbing me, ya kwamba tu mmenituunga mkono mkasema polisi watoke hapo, mkatoka jeshi toke hapo, na wale wakijaribu kucheza na hiyo exercise hata nyinyi mnanijua.
Take care mami. Asante sana. Thank you.
Now, a 25-acre piece of land hosting the War Memorial Hospital in Nakuru has been at the center of a legal battle pitting the county government of Nakuru and the owners of the private hospital for 4 months now, leaving operations at the hospital paralyzed. Now, Chief Justice Martha Koome on Friday took issue with the Nakuru County government and the police for failing to obey and implement 6 court orders that would see operations at the hospital resume. 2 judges have recused themselves from the case. Marian Nyambura puts events in Nakuru into context.
Saturday morning and the War Memorial Hospital gate is locked. Normal operations here have been disrupted for a while now, but police officers are on guard 24 hours. Chief Justice Martha Koome, the chairperson of the Judicial Service Commission, on Friday evening stated, quote, "The JSC is disturbed by the events in Nakuru County, where assailants have occupied the Nakuru War Memorial Hospital, defying court orders." A total of 6 court orders issued on October 31st, 2023, November 2nd, 2023, January 23rd, 2024, January 25th, 2024, January 30th, 2024, and February 6th, 2024 have been defied. On October 27th, 2023, the Nakuru County government forcibly took over the management of the hospital, saying ownership documents were forged to acquire a 99-year lease title. What would follow was an unending court battle that is still very much alive. The War Memorial Hospital management, through their lawyers, sought the intervention of the Environment and Land Court in Nakuru. Before Justice Millicent Odeny, on the 31st of October 2023, Justice Millicent Odeny prohibited the respondents from dealing in any manner whatsoever, investigating, cancelling or revoking the lease of the said parcel of land. How do we deal with that? The order was defied and the hospital management would return to the courts, where Justice Odeny issued fresh orders, looping in the Nakuru East Sub-County Police Commander to, quote, "assist in enforcing the orders and allow access to Nakuru War Memorial Hospital." The orders were enforced and the staff resumed duty, but that was short-lived, as the county government of Nakuru, for a second time, forcibly took over the management of the hospital on January 22nd, 2024. On 23rd January 2024, Judge Millicent Odeny gave fresh orders for a third time and ordered the Nakuru County Police Commander Samuel Ndanyi to, quote, "assist in restoring the hospital to the management of Nakuru War Memorial Hospital." The order was not enforced, as was the case on 25th and 30th January. Justice Millicent Odeny recused herself from the case, handing it to Justice Anthony Ombwayo. On 1st February 2024, Nakuru Police Commander Samuel Ndanyi appeared at the hospital and made sure the facility was handed over to the War Memorial Hospital staff. But goons took over and scuttled the plan.
Court orders are not negotiable. They need to be obeyed.
On 6th February 2024, Justice Ombwayo ordered the Nakuru County Police Commander to visit the hospital within 24 hours and remove the armed group. Justice Ombwayo would later recuse himself from the case, citing frustration. The case was transferred to Nairobi and later Nyahururu. Marian Nyambura, Citizen TV.
All right, 17 minutes past the hour. We take our first short break here on Citizen Weekend. Much more ahead. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. Now, Kenya ranks 3rd worldwide in teenage pregnancies, according to the Ministry of Health. Now, recent data also released by the ministry shows 1 in 5 adolescents aged between 15 and 19 are already mothers or pregnant with their first child. While such statistics have caused an uproar from both state and non-state actors who are now calling for immediate action. And the rights organizations and gender activists say it is time we had a robust strategy to tame the menace. Well, joining me in studio to explore solutions to the scourge of teen pregnancy in Kenya is Dr. Nelly Bosire, an OBGYN and founder of Thriving Teens Foundation. But first, let's hear from some young women who bear the burden of becoming mothers too soon. Take a look. Last April was when Belinda's life, not her real name, would change forever. She got pregnant while in high school, cutting short her studies. At 3 months pregnant, she broke the news to her parents.
Akanipiga and then akanipea fare, akaniambia niende kwa mwenye alinipea ball. But sasa mimi kijana mwenye alinipea ball tulipatana na yeye, but ni kijana wa shule pia, alikuwa form 4, alimaliza last year. Alikuwa anasomea shule nyingine na mimi another school, so tulikuwa different schools. So mimi after tumepatana na yeye si kuchukua namba yake ama nini, so like ikakuwa hivyo.
She resorted to living with a cousin in Machakos, who then referred her to the Kyoto Rescue Center in Murang'a.
Nimekaa hapa Kyoto nikiwa sina stress, like we have good mothers wenye wanatu take care, and the organization pina take good care of the girls, so I appreciate them.
Belinda plans to go back to school next year and take up a vocational course in baking or fashion design to support her and her child. About 208 girls and women have been taken in by the center, with 74% of them being teen pregnancies.
We keep young girls or young women who are in crisis pregnancy. We receive them here at the Kyoto and keep them, stay with them for a short time during the time of pregnancy. Then after they deliver, we reintegrate them back to the society. But also the other thing we do here is we facilitate antenatal care and ensure that the girl has delivered safely.
Sheila, not her real name, is currently pregnant and was brought here by her aunt.
Nikaletwa, nikasaidika, nikafurahia kukuja huku, nikasaidiwa na wazazi wa huku, wakatusaidia, nikijifungua naweza taka kuenda kumaliza shule, nikimaliza shule naweza enda college, naweza taka kuwa nurse.
Kyoto Rescue Center in Murang'a is one of 2 shelters under the Protecting Life Movement Trust that supports young pregnant women in distress. Here, they engage in various activities from tending to the small garden where they grow vegetables for their consumption. The center also has a project for making beaded jewelry, cards, mats, and detergents. In the afternoons, the house mothers provide the girls with lessons in life skills. Protecting Life Movement Trust founder Dr. Jean Kagia has seen her fair share of teen pregnancies and noticed a particularly worrying trend.
So we went back to our statistic and asked, what is the incidence of incest, girls who are made pregnant by family members? And we found that before the COVID lockdown, it was about 11%. And then we looked at the 1.5 years when we are in a total lockdown. We admitted 30 girls. Out of those 30, 10 were from incest. So we moved from 11 to 30. Out of the 10, 3 of them, another 30%, was from grandparents.
This is exacerbated by the fact that most cases are not reported, hampering efforts to get a real picture of the scale of the problem. Dr. Kagia has been advocating for a multi-sectoral approach in tackling the issue of incest from the school level all the way to the courts, especially since home is where the abuse happens.
What does the legal world do, the judiciary? I was very happy to read that our Chief Justice, Honorable Martha Koome, said that all GBV cases will now be dealt with the courts. But you know, the process is still very long. It gives room for people, one, for children to have nowhere to go. It gives room for dynamics to change. So maybe I'm thinking like a doctor. We have what we call emergencies. So in these GBV cases, can they set up a court for incest? So that when somebody is caught with incest, he goes in quickly, he's prosecuted, removed from the society, and put in. That will do two things. It will help other people realize it's not a good thing. Two, this child who has nowhere else to go will be able to go home. We hope the mother who is protecting her husband will accept the child.
For now, stakeholders like Dr. Kagia attempt to offer support to young women and girls who find themselves victims of abuse and rejection at the hands of those who they call family. All right, still in studio here with Dr. Nelly Bosire. Thank you so much for coming in. You know, as you watch that, we've put some voices, not faces, to the statistics I talked about earlier. It's a big problem in this country.
Absolute big problem.
What's driving the numbers from what you've seen?
Well, I think one of the things we have to appreciate is that Kenya is very diverse.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe that's one of the problems we don't appreciate, that the drivers of adolescent pregnancy are not uniform throughout the nation. So we have places like Samburu where 1 in every 2 girls is actually pregnant before they're 18. And this is really chiefly driven by the culture of early marriage. So you move to places like West Pokot, it's going to be just as high. They have about a 37% rate of adolescent pregnancies. So these are very culturally driven. For instance, you'll find in a community where the girl from the day she was born, she was already betrothed. So this man has been paying cows over the period of 10, 12, 13 years. He's like, I'm tired of waiting. I've finished paying. I want my property. And so when this girl is getting married at the age of 13, 14, you find that the parents, the father has no appreciation of a girl child, does not see them as their child. They actually see them as a source of cows. So she will be married off, and immediately she's married off. She's expected to get into the business of being a wife, which is including having children. So for them, a lot of the girls that you're going to deal with are actually married, but even worse, they'll be brought to hospital by the so-called husband. So how do you protect her from her abuser? There has to be a lot of cultural, change around that space. We then have what everyone just thinks, that adolescents are just sexually active. When they're just too young, they shouldn't be active. And you can see what Dr. Jean Kagia is giving as an angle that we don't think much about, that a lot of these girls are actually getting pregnant in the space where they're supposed to be safe. Right. Their protectors are the ones who are turning against that oath of protection of their own children, and they're abusing them or causing pregnancy. So by the time you're just looking at the back of these girls who may get pregnant in a space where maybe to some extent are viewed to have had a choice in getting pregnant or not, that population is actually not as big as we think. So why are they getting pregnant? First of all, lack of information. Yeah. We are parents who were raised and not told much about sexuality. So how are we going to teach our children what we weren't taught? And so we have struggled to be having to introduce comprehensive sexuality education in our society. And one of the biggest forces that we have faced against has really been the church, which is saying children are not supposed to be sexually active. We're not supposed to be talking to them about sex. They're not telling us then what are we supposed to do in this place, because they are getting pregnant. And I have worked with young people for a long time. Yeah. It is amazing how much they actually don't know. We are making an assumption when we talk about exposure, or they're watching too much TV, they're watching too much movies. Yes, they are. They're learning the wrong things. So where are we fitting in the space to actually teach them what is correct? And a lot of the times people assume that comprehensive sexuality education is having conversations about sex. Actually, it's not. It's an empowerment of the mind for a child who is at an age where her biology and her psychology are not at the same age. We start getting adult to adolescence as early as 8 now. We have children having periods from the age of 8. This 8, 9, 10-year-old is capable of becoming pregnant, but her mindset doesn't know what's wrong, what's right, and when to say no. So if we're going to let her grow up enough to learn to make up the decision, her body is not waiting.
I have to ask this because the adolescent reproductive health space is grossly underserved.
Absolutely.
You know, what are the areas that we are kind of missing when it comes to this demographic? And you've talked about sexual education, but what more can we do?
There's a whole lot more. First and foremost, when children are young, we have seen the emphasis of trying to ensure that children get to see their 60th month of life. So the focus on the 0 to 5-year-old is very intense. These are children attending clinics, they're getting vaccinated, they're going for well baby checkups. We're monitoring growth, we're trying to weed out malnutrition for an early age. We're doing everything to make sure children see their 5th birthday. And then they grow up, they're a bit more independent, they get to pre-adolescence, they're leaving home, they're going to boarding schools in high school. They're in a space where they're probably at their healthiest. Okay, they hardly ever fall sick. So the transition from the pediatrician to the physician, who is really the equivalent of a pediatrician at the adult stage, has a gap. And this gap is running all the way from about 10 to 20. And when this transition is happening, people always forget the reproductive health side. So if you have a child who has a chronic condition, for instance, let's say they have a congenital heart disease, the pediatric cardiologist is going to walk with them this journey and then hand them over to the physician and a cardiologist. But no one ever remembers that this whole human being side, that reproduction kicked in. So there is no transition, there is no appreciation that this transition exists. So not only don't we prepare them to understand what's healthy and what's not, and not just in the issue of sexuality, but reproductive health in total, that you're a whole human being. This part of your body developing, it actually affects the rest of you. So we fail in appreciating it from the health space, but we also fail then in translating the same to the social space. And so you find that even as family, as parents, the adolescent is the last child to actually report they're sick. This is the child who you will find sleeping, and the mom is going to be like, why are you sleeping today? And they're like, oh, I'm having cramps. Oh, I have a headache. I think I have a fever. If they were a baby, it would be picked really quickly. Everyone's looking out for the baby. But when they're a little bit independent and they are beginning to create some space of their own to develop independence, we're not paying as much attention to them. We start to miss out on things very, very early on. Before we wake up, we are in a really big space that we have failed. So I do appreciate that we do need to tie up that space, and we've kind of just let it go. Let them to their own devices, left them to their teachers who don't know what to do with a class of 60 adolescents who are representing everything, you know, in personality. They're going through transitions, they're trying to find themselves. They don't know who their friends are. They're worried about their self-esteem. They're worried about, you know, how they relate with friends, whether they have friends or not. There's so many challenges they're facing. And the person who's here to give them a formal education is also expected to be their psychologist and counselor and parent. And no. It can't work. So we tend to drop the ball there and not look at this person as wholesomely as we looked at them at 0 to 5 years.
And speaking about that holistic approach, Dr. Nelly, because we're talking about now a teen mother, right? Oftentimes the focus is put on the child for obvious reasons. They've just come into the world to make sure that health-wise they're taken care of. But we're not looking at the long game.
Absolutely.
The socioeconomic status of this young woman, as she moves forward, we're going to be seeing a full generation of kids who are growing up in low-income homes because mom hasn't finished school, can't get a decent job, and can't give you a decent life.
Absolutely.
How do we begin to deal with that before that crisis?
We're basically recreating the poverty cycle and making it even worse.
Yeah.
Okay. We have seen teen mothers from fairly well-to-do backgrounds. And what happens? They are actually able to be reintegrated very quickly in school. In fact, a lot of the times they may actually finish school even without the society being aware that they were teen moms, because there's a whole change of environment. Take them to a new school, take them to a new town, take them to a new country, give them a fresh start. And so it kind of allows them to be children again, you know, and be able to just walk that journey with their peers and fit in somehow. But they're fitting in because their reality is not staring them in the face. Then we have this child who is growing up in a space where the mom was probably a teen mom. This is all she's ever known. So her mother didn't finish school. Her mother had to start looking for menial jobs to stay alive and survive and be able to feed this mouth that she has. And so when this mouth becomes the next teen mom, she's not going to understand it could be different. She's not going to understand what else I can do to make this child go to school. And we also worry about how have we worked on the reintegrating back to school. So yes, it is our government policy that every adolescent mother should go back to school. But it's no longer as easy because you have a child who needs to breastfeed. Is this adolescent going to school supported to be able to continue breastfeeding, express, take care of the baby at home? Is this adolescent being fed? Remember, she's in a growth spurt. You're feeding yourself to grow at the right pace, but we're also expecting you to feed somebody else. Are we remembering that? So that nutritionally, it's 100% care. Psychologically, she's not ready for this level of responsibility. So that also is completely unsupported. So you're either going to be locked up at home, forgotten from the world, raise the baby, and keep quiet, be grateful you have a place to sleep and food to eat. Or we're actually going to say we're going to be ending up neglecting the new baby who's been born. And that has actually been observed in some communities where I will give an example of, let's say, West Pokot County, where the governor has been very, very committed to education. And as a county, they actually have a county scholarship for putting all children to school. So there is an amount for those who go to day school and those who go to boarding school. And so because of this, parents are able to take a lot of their children back to school, even after they have had babies. But then who's taking care of the newborn? And now from the pediatric side, the team is beginning to get concerned about the newborn's health because they're not breastfed. The mother is looking for school fees for this other child to finish school and come back and take care of the baby she had. And so that, again, it's very hard to keep all these balls in the air. But we must be able to think broadly.
As we wrap up, Dr. Nelly, you know, your foundation, Thriving Teens, what does it seek to do as we are kind of coming up with this collective solution to teen pregnancies?
Exactly that, collective solution. Looking at a teenager as a whole human being and realizing that where we are, when we are talking about how does this child not just survive these years, but begins to thrive in them, means that they have to be made to understand all the facets of their life. That is including the sexual and reproductive health facet. What are your career ambitions? Where are we with education? Who are your mentors? What other medical challenges do you have that can hold you back? And we have a lot of focus on young people with sickle cell disease currently, because these are children that the pediatricians have done a fantastic job to enable them to see adulthood. But we haven't transitioned them in the reproductive health space because they come with very specific challenges. This has also happened to children with HIV. Look at our curriculum. When we teach HIV, what are we teaching our children in school? We only focus on how to avoid getting infected, and once you're infected, how to take your medication so that you don't get sick. Nobody is talking to the children who were born already HIV positive. So when you sit in class and tell them that, you know, if you are sexually irresponsible, you're going to get HIV, this child who's had to live with this condition in school is simply thinking, you're telling me that I am the big bad wolf who's going to make everybody else sick. And statistics have actually shown us that that's the age when they're most likely to rebel, default on their medications, and end up worsening their condition. So the wholesome human being focus. These are not little adults. And they're not big children. They're a very specific category of human beings. They're going through a very interesting transition period that can actually be made fun. Let's not wait for them to fall pregnant. Let's get there, have a conversation, and empower them enough to make the choice to not want to be pregnant now. If we can achieve that, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Nelly. We have to leave it there for your insights. But of course, this is a conversation we have to continue if we want to see those numbers coming down. On that note, let's take a short break here on Citizen Weekend. Much more ahead, including. Marking more milestones. Several Royal Media Services staff awarded at the 40th Aga Khan University graduation. Welcome back. Now, former President Uhuru Kenyatta has chided the Kenya Kwanza government, saying leaders elected into office must look ahead and stop looking at the past. Now, the former president was speaking at the burial of former cabinet minister Amos Kimunya's wife, Lucy Wanjiru Muhinga, at the Foothills School in Kipipiri, Nyandarua County.
Wakati nilikuwa kwa uongozi nilikuwa naambia watu kitu kimoja. Kama wewe ni kiongozi, kama wewe ndio umepatiwa steering wheel ya kuendesha, kama ni county ya Nyandarua, kama ni constituency hii, kama ni nchi ya Kenya, pale popote, kama wewe ni kiongozi wa maana. Kiongozi wa maana anashika steering wheel, anaangalia mbele. Sio kila saa kuangalia rear view ati ametoka wapi. Unaangalia mbele. Ukiwa mtu wa kuendesha ukiangalia rear view mirror, wewe ni mtu wa kupeleka gari katika leo ni akuingia mtaro. Wageko ni mwana utokoria bururi. Rora imbere mumenye kuria muratwara. Omwatira na juko na ige na mamu matari kuria mali. Hakuna pahali mnaenda. Hakuna pahali mnapeleka nchi. Nchi inataka viongozi ambao wako na maono ya mbele. Kwa sababu hiyo ndio itakuwa ya manufaa kutatua shida zile wa Kenya wako nazo.
Now, the National Dialogue Committee has crafted several proposed changes to various laws that will be considered during the report while it's being approved by the Parliament. Well, among them is a draft bill that seeks to make changes to electoral laws and especially IEBC. Now, the proposal is to expand the membership of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission's selection panel from 7 to 9 members in a bid to accommodate a wide spectrum of stakeholders and interest groups. The IEBC Amendment Bill of 2023 also proposes clear guidelines on the boundaries delimitation exercise, which, if adopted, will see the poll body make public the actual proposed names of every constituency and ward, as well as other details. Safin Acheng Oma reports.
Following lengthy deliberations over a bipartisan team led by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Wiper Party Leader Kalonzo Musyoka, the National Dialogue Committee has tabled several bills in Parliament which made several proposals aimed at changing the structure of government and creating new political positions. Key among them is the IEBC Amendment Bill of 2023, which seeks to amend the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Act No. 9 of 2011. The bill proposes to increase the membership of the IEBC selection panel from 7 to 9 to accommodate a wide spectrum of stakeholders and interest groups. The first schedule of the current IEBC Act of 2011 gives the President the privilege of nominating 2 persons to the panel, the Prime Minister also to nominate 2 persons. The Judicial Service Commission nominates 1 person, one person is nominated by the Kenya Anti-Corruption Advisory Board and one person nominated by the Association of Professional Societies of East Africa, making up a total of 7 members. If the IEBC bill proposed by NADCO is adopted, 2 more members will sit on the selection panel. 2 persons will be nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission representing the majority party or coalition and the minority party or coalition. 3 persons will be nominated by the political parties liaison committee drawn from the ruling party, the opposition, and another person from a party other than a parliamentary party or a coalition. 1 person is to be nominated by the Law Society of Kenya, another person to be nominated by the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, and 2 persons nominated by the Interreligious Council of Kenya. The proposal coming at a time when the 7-member panel that was appointed in March last year is yet to resume the process of selecting new IEBC commissioners following a recent directive by the court. The process was put on hold following the constitution of the bipartisan talks. However, on 1st February 2024, High Court Judge Mugure Thande held that the political truce does not override the constitution. Azimio leader Raila Odinga has since dismissed that ruling, insisting that the recruitment will start after the NADCO report has been ratified by Parliament. Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, on his part, stated that while the court is justified, Parliament hopes to finalize the electoral laws in good time.
Parliament has no power to stop the panel. It's just that the panel is doing its work in line with the law. And therefore, all we can pray for is that probably before the panel completes their work, Parliament then will have worked on a new law.
Article 89 of the Constitution requires IEBC to undertake delimitation of boundaries between 8 to 12 years, and the next phase should conclude by March 2024. The lack of a substantive IEBC means that the country is now facing a constitutional crisis. NADCO's IEBC bill proposes that IEBC shall issue notice of intended review of the names and boundaries of electoral units in accordance with the law and invite representations from interested parties. The bill also proposes that IEBC be given the mandate to determine the period within which it shall publish its preliminary report on boundaries delimitation, which should detail the actual proposed names of every constituency and ward, its inhabitants and population, as well as a description of whether the area is classified as a city, sparsely populated, among others, while using the latest official population census report as a key reference. The coming boundaries review is expected to turn into a battle pitting leaders from populous regions against those representing expansive but less populated areas. Already, lawmakers from highly populated areas have been pushing for the 1 man, 1 shilling criteria to be adopted for equal representation and resource allocation. This even as critics of the 1 man, 1 vote principle had opined that critical issues beyond the population size and density must be considered to avoid scenarios whereby urban areas with high population density could end up having too many unviable constituencies. As the debate continues, the issue of whether the looming crisis can be averted, however, remains in question.
There's also the urgency with the review of boundaries, although we have a challenge that we also noted in NADCO. Whether or not we have a commission today, the delimitation of boundaries cannot be completed within a month before the end of March this year.
The Commission's fate now lies within Parliament, which is expected to finalize the process of formulating laws that will guide the next chapter of Kenya's electoral process. Safin Achieng Oma, Citizen TV.
Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition will have additional representation in Parliament, apart from the leaders of minority in the bicameral House, if the Leader of Opposition Bill 2023 becomes an act. And as Seth Olale reports, the bill which falls under the category of a money bill under Article 114 of the Constitution, reflects recommendations and views from the public contained in the National Dialogue Committee report that include electoral injustice and multi-party democracy, among others.
The leader of the Opposition Bill 2023, which is among those prioritized for debate by the leadership of the National Assembly, defines the functions of the leader of the opposition, which shall include representing the interests of the opposition and providing an alternative policy agenda and constructive criticism of government policies. The bill also outlines the functions of the two deputy leaders of the opposition, who shall be the principal assistants to the leader of opposition and shall deputize the leader of the opposition in the execution of the functions of the leader of the opposition's functions, which include fostering cooperation and constructive engagement between the government and opposition in the pursuit of national interest, participating in state ceremonial functions and international parliamentary events on behalf of the opposition, promoting public awareness and understanding of the role of the opposition in a democratic state. The appointment, swearing in and removal of the leader of the opposition shall be within 7 days of the swearing in of the president. After a general election, the Chief Justice shall, in accordance with the Article 92A of the Constitution, swear in the leader of the opposition as determined by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. The Chief Justice, or in the absence of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice shall administer the oath of allegiance and the oath of office to the leader of the opposition to provide for in the schedule, affirming commitment to upholding the Constitution and serving the interests of the nation. In the event that the designated leader of the opposition, as determined by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, refuses or is unable to take the oath of office within the specified 7-day period, the Chief Justice shall proceed to swear in office the person designated to hold that office in accordance with a resolution of a party or coalition agreement. The leader of the opposition shall assume the functions and responsibilities of the office upon the completion of the swearing-in ceremony. Removal of office of the leader of the opposition shall be by a resolution of the party or coalition of parties which garnered the second greatest number of votes in the immediately preceding presidential election, if the person is sentenced for a term of imprisonment of at least 6 months and has exhausted all appeal or review relief available in relation to that case, or if the person is unable to perform the functions of the office arising from mental or physical incapacity. Upon the removal of the leader of opposition under Section 6, the Chief Justice shall forthwith swear in to office the person designated to hold that office in accordance with a resolution of a party or coalition agreement. The remuneration and benefits payable to the office of the leader of the opposition and the two deputy leaders of the opposition shall be a charge on the consolidated fund, and that the office of the leader of the opposition shall have access to necessary facilities, resources, and staff required for the effective discharge of the functions under this Act. Seth Olale, Citizen TV.
159 undergraduate and master's students graduated at the Aga Khan University, among them Royal Media Services personalities. Now, the ceremony was held at the Parklands University in Nairobi. At the same time, similar graduation ceremonies were going on in the universities in Uganda, Tanzania, and Pakistan, where a total of 732 graduates were awarded various degrees and diplomas. Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu, who was representing the president, said the country needs robust infrastructure investment in strengthening the education sector through local and international partnerships. He also applauded Aga Khan for setting high standards in education and the health sector.
A surge in the number of graduating students, which should also challenge us to put in place measures that guard against foreign standards and the quality of degrees awarded.
Sisi ambao tumewekwa katika position of leadership in the media, there are skills that you did not have before that you need to have now, so that you know how to manage people, how to manage resources, na pia we mwenyewe upevuke kiakili ujue mali media inaelekea.
The field of media, just like any other, is always changing, very dynamic. It's evolving in very many ways, and so it's always important to go back, and learning never stops.
Graduating today is a testimony to what we've been able to do, and I'm so glad that I enrolled in this program. So I'm just looking forward to the future, which is, of course, a very challenging media industry, but I think we have the skills.
Communication is an art, and the government is also communicating, just like the media is communicating, and so this degree helps me to be a better communicator for government, for the Ministry of Interior where I work for.
Welcome back. Let's talk sports. And FKF Premier League leaders Gor Mahia returned to winning ways, registering a narrow 1-0 win against high-flying Nairobi City Stars in Machakos, as Benson Omala found the back of the net for his 10th goal of the season. Elsewhere, at the Police Sacco Stadium in Nairobi, Police FC piled more misery on relegation-threatened Shabana FC, beating them by the same 1-0 margin. David Okoth connected Kenneth Muguna's pinpoint pass to fire home the only goal of the match. In other matches, Bandari defeated Nzoia Sugar 2-1 in Bungoma as Posta overcame Ulinzi Stars 1-0. Nakuru City Queens and Royal Starlets have secured their places in the FKF Women's Cup round of 16 after seeing off NYS Queens 4-1 and Nairobi Starlets 3-0 respectively in the preliminary round at the Ruaraka grounds. Here in Nairobi, Lena Wanjala scored a brace in the 28th and 40th minutes of the first half before Lena Were and Triza Ekesa also contributed goals in the 50th and 92nd minutes respectively. Lona Kwambokas gave the NYS Queens their consolation goal. At the same ground, Brenda Mukunga and Mary Juma secured Royal Starlets a spot in the round of 16, with the former scoring twice in the 37th and 87th minutes. Milima Queens also advanced to the FKF Women's Cup round of 16.
Pata wanacheza na timu ya chini, unajua wao kucheza na timu ya chini wao relax. Wakipata timu ya juu ndio wanajituma sana. So ilibidi ni wasukume ndio rudi level yao. At least tupate kupiga mabao. Challenge yetu imekuwa kufunga mabao. At least leo wameweza kupata kupiga mabao. At least tunashukuru.
Now, the body of Jarvis Hakizimana, the coach who died alongside World Marathon record holder Kelvin Kiptum in a fatal road accident last Sunday in Kaptagat, Elgeyo Marakwet County, has been repatriated to Rwanda ahead of the burial scheduled for Wednesday next week. Now, the family of the deceased gathered at the Eldoret Hospital morgue to collect the body, which was then ferried to the Eldoret International Airport, where it was transported by air to Nairobi, awaiting a flight to Kigali, where it will be interred. Well, Jarvis, who was Kiptum's longtime coach, perished alongside the athlete when the car they were traveling in veered off the road before hitting a tree and killing them instantly. The autopsy report showed Jarvis died of intracranial bleeding consistent with head injuries and skull fractures.
They were inseparables. They were very close friends. Other than that, as a coach, he has done a fantastic job in ensuring that he produced one of the best athletes Kenya has ever had. This morning, with the family of the Jeffeys and the wife, we facilitated the repatriations of the remains of the coach.
And the National Olympic Committee of Kenya, or NOC, has embarked on a significant safeguarding program, starting with a 3-day capacity building of trainers workshop in Sagana, underscoring its commitment to creating a safe and secure sports environment within the country. This initiative is a pivotal step towards protecting athletes and addressing various forms of abuse, including physical abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, harassment, sexual abuse, neglect, bullying, discrimination and exploitation. The safeguarding program aims to work with national federations and their stakeholders to foster a safe sporting environment.
Being able to understand certain dynamics in handling or interacting with the athletes, and not just athletes. Safeguarding is all about protecting coaches, officials, athletes, younger kids. Now it just hits in all angle dynamic.
All right, and that does it for Citizen Weekend. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Victoria Rubadiri. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Yula Nzale. Have a good night. One Love is up next.